Wah. Does that work? It's weird, as always. Can you hear me? I hope. I'm getting the stuff to work here. Hi. Have I moved my desk a little bit? I guess. It's a hot mess down here. It's definitely been as the kids come down here, so they kind of trash the place from time to time. But overall it's doing better. How is everybody? Right? Oh, sweet. Thank you, Smile and Speed Dial, for following us. Much praise for that. We'll see if the other things work again. I have no idea if that sound effect works. Honestly, actually, because my sounds, you can fix it. It may break everything. Yep. Yeah, sound effects didn't work for me either. I actually think I know why. Because they pull off of a... Well, actually, the sound effects were just working before when someone followed. That's weird. Oh, you know why the bot commands aren't working? Because I didn't turn it on. Let's do that. Let's do that. There we go. Yeah. Forgot to turn on OnkBot. It's been forever. I always forget to do this. And like OnkBot's gonna tell me to update because I haven't updated in forever. So it's gonna freak out. And I actually need to turn on Streamlabs as well. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, I think we're working again. I think things are turning around. There was a question, but I didn't see the question. What? Oh, were you just testing it? Got it. I get it. Oh, so people are, I mean, I'll say it now. People are gonna be like, oh my gosh, when's the game coming out? We're still in closed alpha. So we've been in closed alpha since about like middle of March. And the last stream I showed what was called gray box stuff, and I even explained during the stream that like, hey, this is gray box. Like it was very like early, like just blocked out stuff, and I still had people like yelling at me saying that the game, how dare I show that? I don't know. Anyways, I was very, I tried to be very honest and upfront, like saying that was unfinished, like not even like it's sandbox level, which means it's just like a test level. And I was just showing like, hey, this is how we test out some of our new features that we've been working on. What you're looking at right now is an actual in not in game, so to speak, but like in editor, because I'll be doing world building. So some of the things I'm going to be working on today is just some treatments leading up to where we're going to put some things, and basically just kind of popping online because this is really less spoilerish work. Most of the time I've had to be pretty locked down from streaming just because a lot of stuff I've been doing is pretty spoilerific, and quite a bit of backers and fans and stuff really don't want us showing stuff that's spoilery. And so we've tried our best to avoid that. And unfortunately, it kind of bites us in the ass because then people think we're not working on the game. And in terms of newsletters and updates, the plan for that is I'm writing the next one right now. And I'm waiting just to get a couple screenshots from Tim because he's doing some stuff, and then we'll do that. And the hope that we're trying to do actually in future is once we start releasing a little bit more of the game, in terms of visuals and stuff, I may just make video of me playing and just talking over it. I've noticed a lot of developers do that. It seems to be a pretty cool way of showing stuff, or at least talking about development in a way that's not a newsletter. Because I mean, while I still like doing newsletters, they take me about 2 weeks to write. I have to write it all up, get it proofread, make the animated GIFs, and it's never as easy as you think. Something always breaks or something always, like, you get the perfect shot and then like UI popped up in the middle of the screen, or something like that. So in that regard, yes, I mean, we just did an event. So, oh, Cake, have you never been following this whole time? Awesome. But so, I mean, I guess what we've been up till since, so what I was talking about was what closed alpha. So we started closed alpha around middle of March. We've been in it just barely, just now we've just crusted over 2 months. And we'll probably be in it a little bit longer, and then at that point we'll move on to closed beta, and then closed beta will be, hopefully will go well. If we find a lot of issues or problems, then obviously it'll take longer to get to our initial PC launch. But but what we found when we were working in closed alpha, we got an invite. We got invited to go to what's called the E3 Judges Week. It's kind of like it's called like the Independent Evening, and it's about us, and there was like 9 other indie games, and we got to go to this kind of casual little setup, and a bunch of press showed up. So about 30 plus press, big press, like ones that you guys probably know about. IGN was there, I think Polygon was there, PC Gamer I think was there, GameSpot was there, and then also streamers. So that's when I don't know if you guys check our Twitter, but like Greg Miller made a post that was sort of like out of blue. It was awesome. He came and played the game. So we had like what we called a press build. And so what we did while we were working on alpha was we got some feedback. And some of that feedback I'll kind of run around and show, but we re-scrubbed sort of the first 15 minutes or so of the game. We had been working on that for a while. We thought it was really where we wanted it to be. And then when we talked about and found out that we were doing this press event, we looked at the way it was sort of playing out and how it would play out for getting it in front of somebody like a first-time player. And we made further adjustments, and we actually really like where it is now. And by when we did this quote-unquote press build, it was really just sort of a run-up to the first major kind of encounter with the boss, and then we ended it. And we wanted that really tight. So when we finished it, we saw I think like 13-ish, 15 people or so um, played through what we had at this event, and I think all but two of them died, like in the sense of like they couldn't get through it. Some people died and they replayed and beat it, and we really, that's pretty successful. Most you really don't want people to bounce so to speak, in the sense like they play the game and they leave, they're like, oh, this sucks. And to have people basically play through it, get all the way through, defeat the first guy and then be done, that was a big success for us. And so we integrated a lot of that and even adjusted it further into sort of a better way forward for the player to kind of get into the game. And I mean, that soaked up some of our time, but in a lot of ways it was for the right call. It wasn't like demo mode in the sense like, oh, we're just making stuff to throw away. It was all better for the player and better for new players, as well as everything we did was sort of global updates. So a lot of those things were like prompting, which is sort of like explaining to the player like, hey, um, you might want to press a button like this or that. And we have a very casual, I wouldn't say casual, but very subtle. That's a better word. Subtle kind of prompting system. And now all that stuff you can turn off in options. So if those people don't want that, I mean, it's not like it's a giant, stupid stop the game type stuff, but it's very subtle. And we also really cleaned up a lot of our, which we've been doing for a while, but a lot of sort of the response time for controls and stuff like that, and got that really tight. And there was a lot of things in our original sort of first 15 to 20 minutes of the game where we really thought we had to explain a lot of stuff to the player. And we kind of got rid of a lot of that stuff and made it much more straightforward. And I mean, we still, like I said, we still give some prompts here and there, but just made it a lot snappier, quicker to get sort of around. And I think that helped a lot with, I think, current day player expectations on how a game should play versus maybe something that was umpteen years ago, where maybe there's patience was something that I think people had more of back then. Now it's like if something doesn't work, or it's like within the first 20 seconds something isn't happening, they're like, screw it, I'm not playing this. So yeah, just, I mean, that's just stuff we've come across as we've been developing. So yeah, what I'll go ahead and do is play real quick and just kind of show where I'm going to work initially, why I'm going to do that, and then just to give you guys sort of a visual representation of how I work, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to play. Hopefully this works. Like I said, it's been a while since I've worked with OBS, and that's what I use for streaming, and it almost always breaks. So hopefully this works. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Please God, don't break. And Unity takes a while also to when I'm streaming, you may see me like constantly hitting escape and getting back into the game and going back and forth. And that's because sometimes the controls will, while streaming, kind of get messed up while being in development build. So hopefully this works. Everything else is okay. I haven't checked the stream for a while. Just looks like there's some chatters. Cool. Okay. But feel free to ask questions too, outside of obviously the ones I just answered. I know it's been a while, so. Oh, yeah. But I would say this though: the event we did went better than I think we could have ever expected, and in a number of ways for us. If you guys can't hear anything, let me know, because the way I had to set up the sound was that I actually don't hear it anymore. So it's kind of tricky. Let's load from here. And what you're seeing is like all the no stream stuff. That's just for our, while we're in closed environments, like closed alpha, closed beta. We just sort of say, hey, don't do that. And it's mainly so that we don't have people playing and showing things that are potentially broken, or also from a feedback perspective, it sort of tightens the feedback loop for us so that we're getting feedback directly from our backers and not from like, hey, I watched some random stream somewhere and I hate you because you did this. And it's like, oh, well, should I listen to that feedback right now, or should I listen to the feedback of our backers? So that's something that What the fuck? Hold on a second. We gotta change the controls. There we go. There you go. Sorry about that. Yeah. So is it working? Okay, cool. I think I'm in full. Yeah, so that's what we have right now. This is what we showed, I think, last time too. A while ago, we showed a lot of this. So since then, we made some adjustments. I think I don't even know if the temple was even there yet. That's where the temple is up there. You can sort of get over to it if you want. Yeah, this is all what we had before. But obviously, there's a lot more changes we've done than what you see right now. What I'm going to be doing is making some adjustments, some like polish adjustments. I think I have a couple different items. Yeah, I have a silk cloth and a grapple hook. Running around. I can go in here. Can you guys hear sound okay? I'm gonna just cut out real quick. Oh, can't hear the sound. Oh, you know why? Because I turned it way down. That's why. Let me give me a sec. I'm just gonna exit this or turn up Unity a little. Oh, no, that's OBS. I think 20% may be good. I think it's just really quiet. Can you hear that now? I can't. Hold on a second. Let me actually get the window up. Nope, nope, nope. Awesome. As always, flawless. Flawless stream. Oh, then it's just probably just really quiet. If you guys are hearing anything, it's probably just super quiet. So I'm just gonna turn it up a little bit more. I just turned it way down because last time it was like rage mode about how loud it got. So we're gonna turn it up. I just turned it way, way down last time. So let's get that. Hear that? Oh, for fuck's sake. Sorry, I just have these. I have like all my windows on one screen for development. And there we go. No sound. Seems like, oh, awesome. Love it. Best part. The best part of OBS is that it never works. That's the best part of it. Sweet. You guys can't. I'm just trying to see, like, you can't hear any of that. That is infuriating. God, that pisses me off. Nothing. Perfect. Flawless. That doesn't make any sense. Let me. Yeah, I think it's just turned way down. Because last time it was too loud. So this time I made sure to turn it down. And I probably just turned it too far down. Just get it. Yeah, now? It's just the hopeless. Oh, for fuck's sake. I hate OBS. I hate this. uh, fucking hopeless. Well, whatever. It doesn't matter because I'm world building today, so who cares? Good times. And you'll see hitching. That's just that's because I'm in engine right now. So it's just loading and it just does hitch spikes. When it's in executable, you won't have it. So I've turned off just about anything that would be a spoiler. So there's it's gonna be a very empty world right now. Um, but I'll show you where I'm gonna work. So what you saw was kind of a little bit of this scene right here, and I'll be working over here. But he's still here. So these guys will be, you'll see him around. It has awesome sound effects. They're the best sounding sound effects. I can hear them right now in my headphones, actually. But, you know, it makes sense if OBS actually worked. It is actually. I believe motion blur. I mean, like I keep saying, like what you guys are seeing is in engine stuff. So if you're seeing like hitching and like that massive blur spike, that's because like right now it happened again. It's because I'm in engine. So it's hitching because it's loading while in engine, like while in development in Unity, it's loading those things. So that's how it happens. But there is depth of field, all that crap can be turned off. If you're a purist and wants like none of that, you can turn almost all of it off. So actually what we'll be working on right here is this lead up. So over there, we're gonna go put something cool in. And instead of making it sort of this obfuscated sort of approach, we're going to change it so that you go from that location over there and then run up to that. So we're gonna work on that, which is pretty light. And then there's another area I was gonna work on if I have time, which I may have time, which is I'm gonna point, but it's like it's way over there. It's way over the direction that she's looking in right now, over in that way. But yeah, you can tell like I'm right over a load point, so that's why we're getting a spike. All that stuff is loaded in executable, but in this end, it's not. Percentage of how much this game is done, I'm not. If I give that, I'm probably wrong. So I would say it's in closed alpha. Like that's the best explanation I can give. Giving a percentage is not really the right way to approach it. It's more about because we could say like it's 80% done, it's 70% done. But even that sort of what does that mean? Is that the number of bosses that are done? Is that the amount of hourly play through? It's really tough to say. I think what we're more looking forward to is kind of what we can get accomplished during closed alpha, and then we get what we get accomplished during closed beta. Are probably our two biggest things because by then we should know how close we are. Right now, some days I'm like, oh God, we're so close, and then we make adjustments, and it's like, oh, guess not. Anyways, yeah, I've been just running in circles, so I will move on to actual world building. But the cool thing we have now is like before, I think we got feedback from players that were not necessarily confused, but they're like, hey, like I'm not quite sure what I can and can't climb. So now we have, like I said, sort of for players that care, and you can turn this off. Like you'll see at the bottom, it now says you can climb. So it's just like a little prompt check that lets you climb if you want. We have a better climb jump that she works on. So we used to like morally translate the player, and now there's an animation that plays. So that's cool. Um, so, anyways, let's. What? I can't. What is that? So the question is, would love some info on in-game AI. I'm sure you guys have some cool algos and stuff. What is what is algos? I don't know what that means. Oh, there's a little fatty. Fatty. Damn it. Got you. All right. Yeah, so I'm just running right now. This is what happens sometimes. I'll just be playing the game and then I'll just start. Like, I'll forget that I actually have to be working. So let's do some world building. Actually, I don't need to quit. I just turn it off. Bam. So I didn't understand the question. Oh, algorithms. Oh, I'm not the engineer. So in terms of AI, I know Tim is Tim has been doing some of the AI, and Chen did a lot of the kind of core AI for the bosses. And Tim does the AI right now. He's actually working on it a little bit right now, and then he's doing another pass after E3 um, on what we call like our minions in the game. And they would have been all over the place, but I turned them all off because you haven't shown that stuff yet, and it's not quite ready yet, and we want to show it in its best light. So that's kind of why we hide some things. Um, but I know he's looking at doing sort of an additional pass with the AI called utility AI, and that'll change a little bit of how the AI is set up on the bosses. In terms of algorithms, that's totally over my head. And I can talk to them and see if they can maybe give me some insight into that at some point. And I can get back to you maybe somehow in a newsletter, or you can meet us in Discord and I can bring it up. But in terms of how a lot of the AI is, most of the time we set up a number of behaviors, and that's kind of the best way to describe it is behaviors, and then they react upon those behaviors depending on what's going on. Um, Sorry, it's the best answer I can give you. So what I'm gonna do right now is like we talked. So this is that area. If you remember, like I just ran across. There's that little cave, and I came down through here. This area right here isn't loaded. That's why it's that color. So the question is, what been the most challenging part so far with developing the game? Um, I think more. I mean, most challenging initially was probably getting our climb and physics and all that stuff to really work. Work, and by work I don't mean like getting her to attach to a boss. Like that was done fairly quickly. It was more about getting it to play right, feel right, um, be polished to an extent that we felt even comfortable showing it to people, and then consistency, right? Because with physics and attaching a character to a large deformable physics mesh, that can cause a number of things that aren't consistent, because the mesh is always changing, angles are always changing, so your attach points and things can vary. And because of that, you can run into what we always curse at, which are edge cases. So you may, 99% of the time this may happen, but there's this 1% chance that will happen more than 1%, but it's a 1% chance that XYZ will happen, which isn't the desired result of the player. And that's something that, we've been hammering down on and trying to get better. And then you also add on to that just sort of the feel, right? And feel is a big, big, big part of games. If you're an early developer or someone who's interested in game development, half the time when we're polishing or working on things, it's getting it so that it feels right. The getting it to work is one thing, right? Like that's almost the fastest thing. You got it to work, but getting it to be fun and getting it to be sort of the desired result of the player, that comes with like response Feedback is a huge thing, like surfacing feedback to the player so that they know something's happened. You can almost never do enough. There's always more that you can do to explain to the player. And I think the way we've been making the game, where we've really tried to minimize text and really try to push it into the world, has probably been a challenge for us. One that we maybe wouldn't have to have dealt with as much if we just put text boxes everywhere. That can be, I feel like that can be sort of a double-edged sword, where if you explain one thing, then you have to start explaining everything to the umpteenth degree. And then you have to translate all that stuff and do a bunch of additional work on top of that. And then your explanation has to be legible enough that people understand what you're trying to explain to that person. And so I look at it as go, well, look, if I can do it without text and the player can understand, at least be drawn to whatever they need to do, and then prompted, that can be just as, just if not more immersive, but also help the player in, if they learn it right, then you don't have to constantly be re-explaining or diving deep on every single detail of the game. So yeah, I think that's something that has been a challenge for us. But in a lot of ways, when we overcome those challenges, it's stayed kind of true to what we wanted originally in the game, and because of that, then it's sort of reaffirms what we're doing. And then on top of that, it's a global thing, right? We try to make because we're such a small team, we try to make our what design decisions we do make, we try to make them be as global as possible, that it affects the entire game. So that way we're not saying, well, this happens this way, this one way at this one point, but then it never does, like there's some games that do that. And I feel like at that point you're almost constantly having to readdress to the player, like, well, remember we told you how to do it like this? Well, now you got to do it like this. And that can break sort of the immersion. And in a lot of ways it can confuse players. So I'd say that, coupled with, like I said, just getting the game to feel right to the player. And we've come a long way. I mean, if I played an original build, I actually still have, I think, the pre-alpha, like the original pre-alpha, and it just feels remarkably different than what we have now. I like what we have now a lot better. But even from our kind of pre-closed alpha build, and then even probably like a month ago what closed alpha was to what it is now, we're able to make, and it's these small changes, but they make huge improvements upon like the overall play of the game. So yeah, I'd say those have probably been our biggest challenges. I mean, that and I think if I were to add anything else, it'd probably just be yeah, no, actually, now I think about it, those are probably our biggest challenges. I mean, every game, we're always dealing with like, oh crap, how are we going to do this and how are we going to do that? And right now, I think we feel much more confident with where we're at and what we need to do, what's remaining. But talk to me again in a month, and I may be like, well, actually, it's, oh shit, this popped up or that popped up, because it's at some point it does kind of get to be like a whack-a-mole situation where we get bugs, especially now that we're in closed alpha, we get bugs, we fix those bugs, and then we push out a new build. And then we try to, in those new builds, have some level of feature or some level of improvement that's not just a bug fix, so that the player is able to then, so we get more feedback, right? That's what's most important. The same thing will go once we feel like we're at a point where we can call it, okay, now it's ready for a closed beta. And like I said, that I don't know when we're, I mean, I kind of have hopes and dreams of when I would want closed beta, but giving out dates is just kind of it really only ever bites you in the ass. So if you're expecting dates from me, you're not going to get them. Sorry, but that's just my especially in a stream, that's not really the place to kind of throw out information like that. So anyways, I moved into this scene so I could do some work. So let's do some work. So what I have up right now, this is like the blue bubble thing. I showed this in a newsletter a while ago. This is one of the tools that Tim made for me. Freaking awesome. It's our ramp tool, and I use it religiously. So like I said, you can tell here we make things with a path. We tried a number of different solutions to how we wanted to do world building. And when you look at other games, they all kind of follow the same sort of metric, and there's a reason for that because it works. Originally, we had just like throw the player in like in just a bunch of snow and see what happens, and we thought the response would be positive. In a lot of ways, it was I'm lost, I don't know what I'm doing, and they don't feel like they have a sense of direction. And if you sort of just like add nuance things like a small path, it doesn't have to be like follow the yellow brick road, but we jokingly called it that for a while in development. Just the idea that like if they are on a path, it will always lead to something. I think most subconsciously, I think people expect that. If you're walking in the forest, right, you kind of find either natural made paths or man-made paths, and you follow them. Very rarely do you go, I'm just going to go like trudge through a bunch of bushes and climb over this rock and climb up this tree. Like that's pretty rare. And in cases like that, very rarely do you find what you're looking for. So in this instance, that's why we've done it this way. And then we allow the player, if they want to go off the beaten path, so to speak, there's obviously tons of things for them to do and go through. But we found that to really help players, because one of the things we were finding in our pre-closed alpha, and then when we got it into closed alpha, was really getting the players to find and go to the bosses. They would be like, "Oh, I love the game. I played it for like 2 hours." I'm like, "Well, what'd you do?" And they're like, they played the first boss or whatever, and they're like, "And then I ran around." It's like, okay, did you ever find a boss? And they're like, no. So we've been focused on that too, is sort of nudging the player along and getting them to find bosses without having to be really deliberate. And that's one of the things you saw earlier, if you were watching earlier when I was in game, was the bird would fly overhead, crow dragon, whatever we call it. So basically that thing flew overhead and it was like, oh, okay, if I maybe would follow that, maybe that's where it would be. Same other thing, we have other bosses that you'll see throughout the game that will sort of hint at where they are. And I think that helps make it feel far more immersive is one thing, atmospheric, and in a lot of ways it sort of nudges the player without forcing them. Like we said in past, this is sort of non-linear. The player can really go in any direction and fight the bosses that we'll have in any order that they want. So because of that, we have to be very open to the fact that the player may not go down this path and may go over here and run over to this other area, and we need to be able to give them clues and hints whenever we can, so that they can find the bosses that they want to fight, or at the very least find a boss. So yeah, we've been working on that a lot, and right now, like I'm doing a lot of world building. We're doing a lot of stuff currently for our E3 build. When we did the press build, like I was talking about before, that was for the E3 Judges Night thing that we were invited to. And that was really like a taste, like the first 15 to 20 minutes. And then after that, we were like, okay, well, we know what happens in the game. Things happen, and we want to polish that portion up and then really show what we kind of call the open world experience. So we want to make sure that that's as tight as we have, at least for E3, and release that obviously for our closed alpha backers, and then make sure that that is tying together. And a big part of that is going to be, I think Tim's doing a pass, like I said, on our minions, as well as some difficulty adjustments. So one of the things else we're trying to do is, did anyone say anything positive to our face at the event? Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of, it was, I'll be honest, like I was really nervous to go, very nervous to go. And in some ways, like, I wasn't sure if it was going to be really in our best interest to go. Not because we didn't want to go, but because the effort to put that in may wind up kind of biting us in the ass, in that we would find ourselves doing a lot of what I would call like demo mode work. And that's a very common thing that happens in in game development, especially big budget game development. They try to make a really cool E3 thing, something for E3 that's really sexy and shows well in marketing. So they'll kind of throw their schedule to the wind and put the entire team or half the team on hacking a bunch of stuff to make it look sexy and play sexy and be great. But in a lot of ways, a lot of those aren't really good systems. And what can happen in that regard is you basically build a bunch of work that's complete and utter throwaway. Now, it may help design, and it may help sort of pitching, getting the word out for the game. But usually, from a development standpoint, it can be very, very hurtful for the project. So luckily, we were able to not get into that situation and focus exclusively on like anything we added while we were working on that kind of press build was that something that would go across board in the game. So a lot of things we were adjusting were like response time, feedback, and getting, prompting and making sure the player knew what they're doing, and fixing a lot of small bugs that were cropping up. And we fixed a lot of those things and improved a lot of things. So in the end, it kind of lit a fire under our ass to sort of tighten up a lot of things that we were maybe putting off in our backlog. But at the same time, it helped us focus on those things exclusively and overall make the overall experience that much better. And it showed, like when we showed to a lot of the press, they were very excited. And we've made contacts that will then go and seek out at E3 with what we've updated, which will be the stuff I'm working on right now. So in regards to, was it worth it, and did we, get a lot of positive feedback? Certainly, like without a doubt. And I would be lying if I said like I didn't come back like totally motivated and pumped to to jump back into development. Not that I wasn't, but like when you go and do that, it's almost like like an endorphins rush. I mean, you're just like, oh my god. I mean, especially when we got it. Greg Miller gave us the tweet that was like, oh my gosh, to this 1.3 million followers, like that's life changing for a lot of people. It's life changing for us, and to not even expect that to happen, right? To go in thinking, okay, we'll talk with some press and they'll hopefully not tear us a new one. To come out with something like that, I mean, that was just like, okay, that was the best thing that really, I mean, I never expected something to that level. And in the end, Tim, myself, it was just Tim and me that went, by the way. It wasn't Chen. Chen was in Taiwan, doing work, obviously. It was kind of funny. He was actually sending us builds, like, he was 6 hours or 11 hours different. So it'd be like 4 a.m. his time, and it's like 2 p.m. our time. And I'm like, send us a build. You got to send us this update. And so it gets kind of crazy in that regard. But it was just Tim and I. So when we left after the event, we had some drinks with some of the other developers that were there as well, and had some good chats. And then Tim and I just went off and talked at length about like what exactly we need to do, and watching kind of first time players, especially press, because when you get press to play, I mean, most cases they've played a ton of games, they kind of know what to expect, and it was great to see that a lot of the things that we had worked on, like prompting and making sure the player knew what they were doing and felt like they had a good experience, all seemed to play out really well, both in that kind of environment as well as just like a first-time player. So we were, it was, like I said, I'd be lying if we weren't excited about that. And yeah, that was pretty much it. There we go. I'm just smoothing this down now. Sometimes when I put that ramp at an angle, you can see some of these little spikes pop up, and that's just has to do with the shape of the brush, I think, and it not playing nicely. So yeah, at this point, this is just gonna be a fun little walkway down here. Goes down this way. Question is, did the remake of Shadow of the Colossus worry you guys, or did you think it helped boost the game more with comparisons being made yet again? I don't have any like I mean, I'll be honest, when I first heard about it, I was a little like, oh crap. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, well, wait a minute, like, it's a remake of the original, which means that we only have so much effort that we can do to get the word out about our game. So obviously, we're inspired heavily by Shadow of the Colossus, and to have that game come out again doesn't really hurt us. If anything, it actually does more marketing for us. And especially given the fact that I think people were worried like we were going to release like the same day or around the same time. And the fact that they have now come out and gone means that there's that many more people that maybe had never heard of the game before and played it and then want to play another game like that. So in a lot of ways, like, it's benefited us. And then in a lot of ways, it sort of established a bar that we now aren't necessarily trying to beat, but we know, okay, well, if we can get close to that, 3 people doing this, that's pretty amazing. Um, and then also being able to sort of see where they made some adjustments for like things like, oh, it's another thing we did like for control. So we have profile types now. We had some players want a very specific style of control. We had some feedback. People demand the fact that jump was. Oh, this is a good one. So we have a profile now. This is an old 360 controller. I use it because it works on PC. But I also have a PS4 controller that works. Like, I mean, if you're playing on PC, any controller will work. We have a plugin for that. But basically, some people wanted jump on Y. Some people demanded that jump be on A, and that we were stupid not to have, like just everyone had their very personal reason where the jump button needed to be. So we have profile types. So jump is here. Like I play with jump on Y. And then if you want, you can switch it. We have profile settings, and you can switch it to A being on the bottom. So, and there's some other things you can switch to. In any of those switch settings, you can also switch inverse controls. So you can invert, I believe you can invert horizontal and you can invert vertical, I think is something like that. Somebody wanted a very specific, like old school style or something, whatever they refer to it as. And so we plugged that in. It made sense, and it's easy enough for us to do without, breaking our brains in terms of how to explain that to the player. So we have those in. We got those in for that press event because we thought, well, someone's going to play and be totally upset that or hate the game because the button's not where they want it. So when they're trying to play the game, they're frustrated because it's not how they feel like it should play. And what we noticed was there's a lot of different types of games out now that use different control schemes. And there's people that play a very specific type of game and want buttons to be like that game they just played. So we've tried to appease those audiences as best we could, while still remaining, with that not changing how the game plays. It's just where you need to jump. Well, now it's down here instead of over here. And in a lot of ways, when we did that, it actually improved some of our other configurations on how we were doing the layouts of buttons. And we've tightened up some things as well, pertaining to how the layout was set up. So all in all, like another bonus that another update that we've done since we've started closed alpha. And like that's why we do this. We're trying to be as meticulous as we can with our development, so that when we release and finally get it out for our players, like they don't, most of that kind of annoying stuff is out of the way. And then, if they hate the game, then we've tried as much as we could. But at the very least, like most of that stuff is that I think small, while ever small, can still really affect someone's playthrough. So someone asked, has the setting of the latest God of War inspired you for world building? I actually have God of War, and I haven't even played it. It's right here. It's sitting next to me because I'm like, oh shit, I should really play this. I just haven't had time. So I don't really know for sure. Maybe. It's certainly got a lot of snow, so I should probably look at it, and it's really pretty. But in a lot of ways, I haven't had time. I played a little bit. I got to play a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus, the remake. But I once again, like, there's only so much time in the day, and well, it's an excuse to say that I should really be playing that game. A lot of ways, I've been really excited about what I've been working on, so I've been focused more on that than jumping into playing a game. Plus, what usually can happen is if you start playing a game and it's really good, you are addicted, and then, especially with E3 right around the corner, like I didn't even go on vacation or anything like that over Memorial Day. I didn't take any time off. I worked all through the weekend. It was rough. So did Tim and Chen. Like we all busted our ass through Memorial Day weekend just to get as much as we can get done. Because for us, it's like E3, we weren't really planning to go, and now we are going. It'll still be sort of a behind closed door things. We're not going to be at a booth. We're not going to have any big stage presence or anything like that, but we're going to meet with press and show updates of the game. And if they want to talk about it, they can. But in a lot of ways, it helps us kind of, like I said, set another development milestone for us that we try to get a lot of stuff in that we know is kind of player facing. And then we just, put that into the next build and push that out. So, yeah, that's sort of where I've been at in terms of, like I said, any other games that have really caught my attention. Um, we did pick up Horizon Zero Dawn as well a while ago, and we played through that a little bit. But that's actually a lot different than what we than our game for the most part. So we've looked at it a little bit, but like God of War, obviously we'll look at some of the things they've done. But once again, I think it's a pretty stark contrast to how our game plays. I'm excited to play it. It looks sick. It looks really, really cool. But then I got to find the time, so so sorry. Anyways, let's get back to this. So yeah, it's gonna be probably a big door right there, and I need to make sure this feels good. So I usually just use the ramp tool. I'm actually going to set this to additive. Right now, what you saw was a modify. So modify, like there's different settings for the stamp mode. There's modify, and then there's additive and subtractive. So I can like, with the ramp tool, I can delete a bunch of stuff out of the world if I want, by like cutting it out of the train, or I can add it. Additively basically means if I go against this wall, like if you watch here, you can see how it's cutting through things. Additively means it's just going to only bring up to where the intended train is. Modify means it's just going to literally do it a flat, like you can see this flat plane. And it's actually not flat. There's a bit of an arc to it. You can see like I can dip it or make it like that if I want. So basically it is like a little pinch point. When I press on my keyboard, when I press negative or positive, it'll basically give me a little bit of dip. So if I want to have like the path feel like there's a little bit of an incline, I can. I usually don't. And try to use objects and other things to sort of drive that. But it does come in handy, especially like this is just a mesh that we loft out, but we can load objects as well. So we'll load usually I'll load a large rocky area and then I'll push that out. And that was what I showed in the newsletter from a couple newsletters ago. I think it was last year I showed that tool. Yeah, it works really, really well. And like I said, I use it frequently. And then I can change like the angle. So if I want it to be, from left to right, I can bank it. And then it gives me the angle. So the dark blue angle, usually angles of like 30 degrees, 20 to 30 degrees feel really good to run up as a player. Anything more than that, it probably usually gets too steep. And then there's usually angles that you don't want, which are like, they're super steep, but you can still run up them. And it just feels like crap. And like you don't, as a player, like you're like, ugh, like I don't want to run up this thing anymore. So try to avoid that. And if we do, we try to make it where either we put objects around there, because you'll be surprised, like, even if I made it, like let's say I turned off all collision, right? I could turn off all collision in this area, but as a player, you would expect there to be collision. And so you just like run through it. So in a lot of ways, like, I mean, obviously we still have collision in the game, but I could put things on these inclines where I don't want the player to run, and it'd just be objects. And usually the player will just like naturally be inclined to not want to walk into those things and sort of avoid it. So in a lot of ways, like bushes and shrubs can be sort of a soft impact thing where you can run through them just fine, but most time players don't want to be obstructed or be, feel like their space is being invaded, so to speak. So they'll run around it. The question was, how many custom development tools have been created? A lot. We have a lot of development tools that we've been building. This is probably the most used one by me anyways, but there's a number of other tools. There's like auto stitching, so we stitch our terrain, like that's a tool that we have. We use some Unity tools, like asset tools that people have built, and then we modified those heavily. So there's a tool called Trainformer, I think, and we've heavily modified on that, or at least fixed it. Some of the times this stuff, well, by fix I mean like the way we build our levels is different than the intended features of how that tool works. But we're actually considering just building our own at this point, because once you modify something to the point where it's kind of like, you may as well just go and build your own for internal purposes, because then the code is written by either Tim or Chen and they can easily go in and know their own code and make the fixes. It's commented and it's working with all the other tools. So we've done a lot of work on kind of object placement. We have our own sort of tool set that works across different terrain pieces. And then we have sort of our own stamping tool. So I'm using like the modified, well, not a modified, but our own ramp tool. And then we have like a stamping tool that we use. So I can go and grab like a mountain in World Machine, and I can shrink down that mesh, and then I can stamp that mesh into our terrain. And that gets really good results, usually like very believable results with like what I'm looking for, with erosion, and kind of has that vibe to it. And then I use the paint tools that we have to sort of adjust where snow is and how much snow. Excuse me, how much snow we have on the terrain. And then we have like our own destructibles. We have our own. We built our own camera system. We still use our own camera system, but then like for a lot of our cutscenes, we actually use Timeline, which is a tool that Unity released in like 2017 Unity, and that kicks ass. Like that really, like Tim made an awesome tool with camera, but he, what Unity made with a team of umpteen engineers and time specifically focused on that, it can't match it. And in a lot of ways, it works all inherently with a lot of Unity's other features. So for us, it's like the double win. So we use Timeline quite a bit for a lot of our cutscenes. And I think Cinema Machine, maybe that's the right one. I don't know. Whatever, they have like two different things that are for kind of cutscenes and sort of scene type approach development, and that's what we use. And then yeah, I mean, I could keep going. We have a ton of different, yeah, basically we have a lot of custom development that we've done. Specifically, we have like a prefab merge tool that Tim made that allows you to like merge, like when we make adjustments to character meshes, that changes the sometimes it changes where character nodes would be for climbing and whatnot. And to do that, what means we have to then update it. So that means I have to repaint all those tools and everything else. Hey, thank you for the follow. Malbers, holy shit. Sup? He's a good friend. Anyways, so that's something else that we do. We use the prefab merge. So like usually if I export a boss or I export something that has a lot of rigging involved, it tends to get kind of screwed up as a prefab, so I have to re-merge it back in. Also our collision detection. So we kind of paint our own collision onto the mesh. So we have our own tools for that as well. And that's I mean, that's a good high level of all the different tools we have. Hope that answered it. Dink. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that's right. So quiet. I don't have any music, but pretty sure if I added music at this point, it'd probably break horribly. Yeah, I'd say one of the things, if you've ever used Unity terrain, and they know Unity knows this. It's very dated. It's very old terrain system. So I'm sure they're probably working on it. I hope they're updating it at some point. It'll probably take them a long time to finally update it. So we have a lot, like I said, we have a lot of our own some custom and some from the Unity Asset Store, like modified from the Asset Store, so that we can get better results with their tools. But ideally, one day that won't be necessary. But for now, we just use these tools. Like I think I said, we use like Terrain Painter, and that's all right. One second. Eesh. There we go. I'm just trying to so I'm trying to do is see this path here. I'm just trying to make this path go forward, but it's actually I can just do this. There we go. So right now I'm just figuring out the opacity. I have something else on the window on this side you can't see, and I'm doing a ton of work on that right now. I'm just trying to get that to play nice. Getting there. Why is it fighting? Screw it. Well, let me pick both. Oh, I know what I can do. Haha. Wow. There we go. Yeah, that's all. And so the way our snow works, it knows based off depth, power, the amount of power, so to speak, you apply to the snow. It knows if it can be deep snow, which would affect the player, or if it would be like a lighter snow that doesn't really impact your speed or anything like that. And then obviously we then use animations to make that look better and feel right. You can see right here. That's where I put down too much snow. And that's it. This is a trained tools thing that we usually have to just deal with. Hopefully one day we won't, but I have to actually like completely paint it out. The fun part. Yeah, game development. This is the fun part of game development. You guys don't ever get to see, which is the unfun part where it never works. Okay, so there we go. Let me put it down again. There we go. That should work. Back. Aha, there we go. So what I'll actually do sometimes is just go really, really fast and just sort of, oops, usually what I do is I paint two paints at a time, so or two trains at a time, that is. So I'll paint snow and mountain. So that's why I usually see a lot of snow and then mountain. Then what I do is we have a blend tool, so we blend between those to get it where we want to look nice and fancy. So what we may wind up doing, yeah, I think I'll just do this. I'll just make it a run up. Not going to do anything too crazy for the player. I tend to make things too hard when I do world building. I'm like, oh, we'll have them like do this. They have to jump here and do all this other crap. And most of the time, sadly, it's too hard and players get frustrated. So at least from a lot of our tests, I've had to knock that back a little bit, cut that out, so to speak. Should be. Oh, here we go. There we go. So you're actually going to see, yeah. See, this is where the trains are. So they're fighting right now on either side. And that's just a little issue that I'll come back through and when we stitch, that fixes all that. I'm just right now. Tim just told me I need to save. It's like, dude, you need to save project. He just texted me that. He's like, make sure you're saving. He brings up a good point. That Tim. Secretly watching, I'm sure, and not saying anything. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I need to come back here, and then I'll, because I actually want it more. We usually like to make it feel a little bit more beat up, so to speak, and it's saving project right now. There we go. Paint. Ah, there we go. Blur it. All right. So that's getting better. And then we're going to do, so we're going to wall this off right here. So I'm just going to make another brush. I mean, I don't need to make another brush, but what I'll do is show you guys tool. This is the ramp rock. There's ramp, and then there's what I call the ramp rock tool. Let me turn it on. So this guy's gonna basically set up some rocks for me. Now we'll usually actually spend a bit of time, and so I can make it. If you can see here, like, let me do it this way so you can see the rocks. So I can make them bigger or wider. It's just a mesh, right? So it's expanding the mesh and shrinking it and sizing it. And then I can just sink it in the ground a little bit or set it up. And then it just basically takes those vert points and just slams it down. What's up? What should we expect? Oh, from us at E3. You're probably not going to even know that we're at E3 outside of us saying that we're at E3. We, like I said, we don't have any major, like, as far as I know, we're not showing anything specifically or announcing anything. We're just there to show if people want to play that are basically on the press side of things. We'll meet with them and show them the build. In terms of, like, for us to do any kind of big thing, it would really probably mean we'd have to make a lot of concessions to what we're currently working on, and that's just not for how small of a team we are. It just consumes us in terms of what we can get done. So it's usually in our best interest to just kind of lay low and just work on the game. And for some, they get that and understand that, and other people, obviously they want us to be more, I think, vocal about a lot of things. So we try. But yeah, see, now it's like, ooh, yeah, it's like a funnel. It's like I come down here, and most players, if they want to go climb and go over there, they can. And that you can see back there, that's unloaded scene. So don't be like, oh, the game looks like shit. Like, that's right back there where I'm like circling my little mouse around. That's unloaded. So it's just I haven't loaded it into the editor to work on it. So we load up in little chunks as we work on things, and we can export out those chunks and really if we really want to work on a very specific thing. I still wouldn't even do it that way. I'd still import it this way. But if I want, I can import it into a different scene and work on it that way. Which is totally not how I work, but if I wanted to, I could. So I can set my speed of smoothing. So I just kind of smooth it out a little bit. The reason why is that you get either these really hard transitions in terrain. And we use what's called triplanar. This is the other fun thing, because this is another tool that we use. It can get bugged where you can see where my circular blue circle is. Like when I click down and smooth, it's actually smoothing. You can see it's smoothing. See the circle? Like, it's not even close to the circle I'm working on. That's just part of game development. Woo! I mean, here's the thing. Tim has specifically said, hey, I can fix that, but it would take the amount of time it would take him to do, he wouldn't be able to do other development. And since it's not really screwing my ability up to work, it's just obnoxious. And it literally happens when it wants to. It's not like a bug that you can really be like, oh, it's a specific thing that's happening. It means he has to go dig through someone else's code and try to fix it based off of how else he's doing all the other work. It's just not worth it. And the better way to go is, like, he had mentioned that he may make just his own version of the tool at some point that's similar in kind of how it works, but would work better for us. And in that regard, we're just like, we may as well just wait, or maybe one day get that tool. Or in the meantime, just buck up and do what I can with what I have. Thank you for the follow. I didn't see the name, though. Sorry. But thank you. It popped up so fast I couldn't see it. And I don't think I ever mentioned, if anybody's just like rolling in from Twitch and was like bored in the game dev scene, I think that's where I'm streaming in. I don't know. My name is Brian Parnell, and I'm the one of three on the project Pray for the Gods. And so this is just me doing some world building and answering questions because it's been a while, if anybody has them. And yeah, I mean, if you are new, never heard of this game before, which surprises me. Like you always think like you've done a lot of marketing. You're like, oh, plenty of people know about our game, and then it's not the case. Like people are like, "Who are you?" And you're what kind of game are you making? It's like we still get people every day that are like, "I just heard about this for the first time," and that's exciting because then it allows me to give them a pitch. So yes, if you're one of the first people, if this is new to you, if you're excited about what what awesome world building skills I have, feel free. Like our game is, you can basically support us through our. We don't have a Patreon, so don't worry. I'm not going to say that. But you can support us on our website by going to prayforthegods.com/support_now, I think. Anyway, there's a big button. You can click on it. You go to our website. Takes you to a Humble Widget. We have a bunch of different tier options. And literally, like, outside of taxes, like, all that money basically goes to help on development. So much help would be appreciated. Let's see. I gotta get this crap done. Da, da, da. Yeah, basically I just set up my. This is a tool we. Oops, let me get it over here. Whoa, what the heck? You see it? Oh, okay. My monitors are set up inversed. This is the tool we use. Like here's the ramp. So I check. I basically check what angle I want this to paint at, and then I just paint down, and it pretty much decides angle for me. And I mean, to some degree, I can make this. I can tune it so I can be like, oh, I really want actually more rock there and not. So I just pull down the ramp a little bit, and then I get a little more rock if I want. Same goes kind of over here. Come over on this side and basically do this. I'll answer your question in just a second. I'm just kind of in the zone right now. This is gonna be cool. It's always fun to like, because I'm the one who's done a lot of world building. Tim used to do a lot of the world building, and then I had to take it over so he could do more development, more engineering type stuff. And because of that, I had to get like better at this. But the bummer part of it is I know the levels now, so like I don't get as like the fresh joy of like playing a level for the first time and seeing all the new things. I already know where everything is. But recently, like on leading up to the press build, there was some stuff that Tim was like, well, I can make those adjustments. And I was kind of like, well, can you just take over sort of the changes for now? And it was awesome because I got to play the game where it was kind of new stuff. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Like it's like a new game. I've never been here before. Like whenever you go into a new area, it always feels so cool if you haven't built it before. And so that was always been a big something I've always been really fond of when I'm not the one making all the levels, or not necessarily levels, but the world when I'm not the one doing all the world building. It definitely gives you a nice you'll feel like more like a player instead of a developer. So that's always been something. It's been fun more recently when Tim's been doing some of the world building. I'm sure he loves to do world building, but it makes my day. That's for sure. There was a question. I was zonked out. I use my mouse. I don't use my Cintiq when I do world building. So I actually have to be cautious of how much world building I do before I like totally screw up my hand. Just from I've gotten like I guess it's called RSI, which is repetitive strain injury. I've gotten that in the past in when I work on art for too long with a mouse or like clicking, like if I just click like crazy. Like if I'm in Excel, which sometimes I'm in, unfortunately, that will kind of spike it and cause pain. So wait a minute. There we go. So that's cool. And then so this is kind of where we want the player to go. I mean, it's not that I don't mean to be like we want the player to go that way, but it's like we know something is going to be cool over here, so we need to make it a bit more exciting for the player. So I'm going to go ahead and load some of my cool stuff. Da, 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 da. Mm. Let's do you. Oh, second. It's in resources. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. I do that. Rob. There we go. This guy. What's up? Asked, I honestly assumed you use ZBrush for land sculpting. Of course not, though. But have you ever exported terrain for ZBrush? Mm. A little bit. Actually, that was sort of my initial plan when we were first had our stamp tool for environment. We were like, oh, I'm like, I can ZBrush these rocks. And I had this whole plan of like using World Machine to export out the mesh and then take it into ZBrush and do some adjustments and then bring that in to use the terrain. And what we really find is like with a lot of terrain, you can use like triplanar. So triplanar, if people don't know what that is, like if you have, you can see actually here the terrain where this is, if you look at my mouse, right, this thing down at the bottom is pretty flat. And then obviously the terrain incline changes. So what happens if this isn't triplanar is it would try to take this texture and map it. When we usually do directional mapping, we do it from straight down, right? That's so like it's applied. You put a texture onto the plane. So as things start to like raise up, you're trying to stretch it over that surface. And what happens is it starts to stretch those textures. So if you look at like older games before triplanar was really even usable, those you'd have a lot of stretch textures on the ground, on terrain, on like the mountainsides. And then triplanar came in, which does is it basically reprojects if the angle gets to be too much. So like if the angle's like this, if hopefully you can see what I'm doing, and then this starts to change upwards, this angle, it goes like this is still textured, the nice texture, but this gets all stretched. It looks at it and goes, hey, I'm going to apply this other texture, or it could even be this texture, but applied this way, so it looks nice and unstretched. And so that's what you're seeing here. Like this is a texture that I made, and like this sort of rocky texture, and we reapply it at that angle. And so we added that, but even then we still take these large rock objects we have and we stuff those in, because rock objects, this kind of goes back to my thing I was talking about earlier, where when players see objects, you don't necessarily even need to have like collision on them. Like I said, we put collision on ours, but you can put things where people will feel like they don't want to be near it because they know it's sort of has a presence in the world. So in this case, even after we did terrain, we thought we could be able to do the whole world in terrain. We still like to stuff rocks and objects, mainly because also the rock then has can have a lot more resolution, be it both on the texture and on the mesh, the polygonal value. But even then, the difference is that our snow, the snow that we'll have, you won't see necessarily the depression on a specific object like that's a mesh, so to speak, because we use a shader for that that's a little bit different than the shader we use for terrain. And honestly, it probably wouldn't look that good, and you 99.9% of the time wouldn't even be able to notice that that's the case. So, or like I said, it wouldn't really give you any redeeming gameplay value in that regard. So, anyways. Sorry. that was my wife. What was I gonna do? Oh, I was gonna drop an object in here. That's right. So I'm gonna do one of my point of interest things. So that's where to go. Selected. Okay, just aha. Do it up. Put these dudes in. This guy. Scalable. What's up? There's two. Is it true that rocks are the scourge of game art? My art team friends always complain about having to work on them. Rocks can be a kind of pain in the ass, mainly because uh, a good rock, like you could make like 30 rocks as an artist, and three of them are good for game design. I think a lot of the reason why artists will make rocks, and I don't mean all artists, but you'll make a rock look good but not play good, or you'll make a rock so unique that it becomes repetitive and is really something that the game or level designer can't really use um, as much as they want. Usually, what happens is with level designers and game designers is they want sort of a bread and well, not bread and butter. What I'm looking for, they want their sort of go-to assets, right? And rocks and trees are both cheap in the sense that like you can place a lot of them because you could have like the same tree over and over again, but players would really care or notice, but they would react in the fact that like, that's a forest. And if you had a bunch of rocks and those rocks were, if you could rotate them and they look different and you could flip them over, sometimes some engines will let you, it's called batch those rocks. And that means you can have like 50 of those rocks in a scene and it'd be all the same asset. Um, Sometimes what you can do is if, like some games, they wind up having like 5 rocks, like AAA games, like super high end games may only have like 5 rocks, but they've been rotated and scaled and tweaked and changed 50 billion times by the level designers because they really like using those assets because they either look really good, light really well, are easy to climb on if it's a climbing game. There's just a bunch of different reasons why they'd want to pick those assets. But I can pretty much tell you, having shipped a number of games with assets like that, it usually gets to be that case where there's these kind of go-to assets that the level designers feel are important. And as an artist, what you end up doing is you kill yourself trying to make those couple assets and you make a bunch of different rocks and they may only wind up using 1 or 2 of them just because, like I said, it just doesn't come down to from a gameplay perspective, or not really like a lazy factor, but just that there's so many different rocks, like they just don't want to have to keep pulling a new rock every time. The other problem too is artists tend to think of building things on a plane, and so they'll put like a tree that literally like they build it so it stops and they just stick it on the ground. But really, what you want is you want it to actually go into the ground a little bit because the level designer wants to rotate that tree, right? And this is depending on your engine if you allow the player to rotate it. And then you get in these nice angles where the tree's sort of rotating and feels like it's fallen over, and you want the roots to sort of pop out a little bit. So really, like artists should be building trees if they are modeling a tree with roots, because then when they rotate it, you automatically get sort of the bonus of having the roots start to stick out. And that's just making good trees is actually tough. Like it takes a lot of by hand effort, and then when you spin the tree, you want to make sure it looks natural. We've been lucky enough to use, I think we use SpeedTree. We may actually switch to something. I'm not sure. I think we're still using SpeedTree. But we have tools to help us obviously build those trees. And we've been lucky enough that the way we use wind and stuff, it kind of gives a sense of the trees feeling unique because they're doing their own thing versus just being stuck in the ground. So there's another question too that was, let's see. Am I worried about the look of the game? Wait, is that the other one? Rock Scourge? Yeah. This is from Dwayne at Sundown asked, are you worried about the looks of the game since games like Horizon and God of War are pushing the envelope? For me, gameplay trumps traffic. I mean, I always kind of laugh a little bit when people compare us to those games. We're 3 people. And granted, we did very well on our Kickstarter, having made $500,000. Like, that's great. Realized we had to pay taxes on that $500,000. Some of that money goes to pay for a lot of the physical objects that we're doing as well. So even then, that amount of money isn't really that amount of money. And then there's really 3 main developers working on the project. When you go look at God of War, you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, you're looking at probably close to 1,000 people, maybe 300 people. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking kind of bullshit here. I don't know the size staff. It could be 60 people. It could be like 15 people. That's still 5 times as many people as we have. And in terms of development, like, we didn't really go full on development until shortly after our Kickstarter. So in terms of people, we've been in development like a full time, so to speak, since August 2016. So we're just now edging up on a 2 year mark. When you look at some of these other games that have been in development far longer. I mean, at a GDC talk, Horizon Zero Dawn was a year of just polish with a team of probably 100 to 100. I think they said 180 people is where they were at one point. So let that sink in, right? So for us to even be compared to those games, I'm blown away. I'm like, that's amazing. And if someone wants to shit on us because it's not as good as that game, I'm still kind of like, well, I mean, we did the best we could. And I feel like, uh, if someone's expecting our game to be, the cutting edge, bleeding edge, I think that's sort of the wrong way to look at our game. And that's not really what we've ever pushed, that we were going to be sort of bleeding edge development. We were trying to look at like, how can we make a game that has the things that we want to convey in the game, as well as use sort of the mechanic that hasn't really been touched. Granted, when we announced, there was no Shadow of the Colossus remake, and Breath of the Wild didn't even exist, at least in the sense of the public knowing that it existed. Obviously, they'd been in development for years, post Skyward Sword. So it was it's great to actually see those games, more games like that come out. It helps us as well. Sort of a lot of things we had hunches on for development are good, based off the fact that those two games obviously had them, re-released them or released them, and people liked them. So we're not as concerned about some of those things that we're working on. But yeah, in terms of like, are we worried or we're concerned? Not at all. If any of that means that someone won't buy our game because it's not as beautiful as God of War, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and go like, okay, I mean, I can't, it's not by them saying it. I mean, we'll try our best to make the game look the best that we can. Don't get me wrong. Like, we're not like, oh, just slap it out. Like, we bust our ass to make this look as good as we can. And I think a lot of our bosses look pretty awesome. And with all the bells and whistles that we put into it, they look really good. But are we, could we make the game better if we had more people? Of course. And hopefully one day, either from the sales of this game, or if we make another project at some point that gets funded somehow, we would certainly want to make it that much better. So yeah, obviously I'll play God of War. I have it right here. I haven't played it yet. And if there's some cool stuff that they're doing, I'll certainly look at that. Hey, Jerry Harper, thank you for following us. I much appreciated it. And welcome to the stream. I think I can, hopefully, does praise work? I haven't really heard it today. Nope, I need to fix that. Should be saying little voice, should be saying praise. Oh, that's a good question. It's from Shadow. It says, what kind of shampoo do you use to have such a silky smooth head? I don't know. I use whatever is in the shower. What can I say? That's all I do. Was working through Memorial Day worth it? Hell yes. Hell yes, it was worth working through Memorial Day. While it was at times depressing and lonely, it was certainly worth it for the stuff that we got out of it. I mean, without a doubt. It was got a lot of stuff done, and let me get objects in here. And in the end, it was yeah. Overall, it was awesome. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. It was really, really good for us, for me as well, because in a lot of ways, my day gets split up a lot. With just, I do all the email stuff. I respond to all the backers as much as I can, as fast as I can. If anybody like pings me on Facebook, you're talking to me. If anybody pings us on Twitter, you're talking to me. If anybody, so like, that's what I do. And then on top of that, I do world building, and I do boss designs and a bunch of other stuff. That's not to say like that I don't like it. I like doing that kind of stuff. So, but it's just it definitely spreads out my development time. So having that time, those couple of days, one back to back like that, where I could just be totally focused. I can knock out like really big things much faster than I would be otherwise able to. So that was, for us, we were able to get some pretty big features, not necessarily features, but some pretty big assets done that was I think really good. For what our backhoes would get, it would be awesome. Um, Let me get the ice. Do I ever sleep? No. I mean, I do. So does Chen. Chen's sleep schedule is pretty screwed up right now. I mean, he goes and visits his family from time to time in Taiwan. So he was just there recently. He got back, and usually when he gets back, he's pretty jet lagged. And so then he gets into this funky schedule where he starts waking up really early, which is totally out of the norm for an engineer. Most time engineers, their schedule is like wake up around 11, maybe 10, and then work until like normal human hours, and then come back and work until like 2 or 3 in the morning because they can't sleep because they're still thinking about whatever they're trying to solve. So that's pretty common. But right now he's on like a wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. and work like a normal human shift and finish at like 5, 6, 7, right, and actually then sleep. But he wakes up so damn early that's like the offset of the hours. And then Tim just works pretty much like me. He wakes up a little later than me because he doesn't have kids. He works usually crazy. He works a little bit later, I think, than me or Chen. He works till about 3 or 4 a.m. and then, or even later. And then I usually go. I usually get up like 6 or 7. Take the kids to school. Come back at like 9:30. Now I run for 20 minutes because I don't want to die. And so I exercise for about 20 minutes as much as I can, and then start work around like 10 and go from 10 till about 5. That's when the kids and the family show up. I'm dad till about 8 or 9. And then I get to watch a show with my wife for about an hour till about 10. And then I go 10 to about 2 or 3 in the morning. And then I go rinse, repeat. Then I go 3, get about 4 hours of sleep maybe, and then wake up at 7, 7:30, and then do the kids, and that's pretty much how I roll. So I get like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, it's just try your best just to focus when you have the time to work. It's the best way we try to do it. There we go. I may use ice here. I don't know. I don't feel like ice. I may put it somewhere else. But anyways, let's see. Get back to work. Oh my gosh. Am I done with the outfits? Almost actually. Everyone asked if I'm done with the outfits. So, long time ago I was working on those, and then I stopped, and then I added a new outfit. So we have like a light outfit that she starts with. So I added that. I need to go back and touch up the Raven outfit again. I didn't really like where I finished it. We added another outfit. The Elite is basically done. I have to go back in. We have a facial rig now. The facial character now blinks, and there's a couple scenes that we're going to be putting in some more facial animations. But she has working mouth, like everything. So we got that in right before our E3 press, or our press build, and that broke a bunch of the outfits because of how we do our system. We kind of swap out a lot of things. So I had to go back and then reincorporate that into the scenes. But for some reason, when I export it, it makes the character go into a T-pose. When Tim export it, it doesn't do that. So we have to fix that. But once I do that, I want to go back and touch up the Raven outfit. I want to add more of some of the things I had in another outfit design. I mean, we did this goofy hood thing way back when, and I just don't like how it turned out. It just looks weird. So I want to go back and sort of address that. I have not done the wolf outfit yet. I need to do that. Um, and I may get a friend to help me with that, honestly, just because of time. But we pretty much have all the other ones done. And like I said, we kind of adjusted and made other ones. Elite pouch is done. Uh, the grapple hook, the elite grapple hook, I made sort of a version of that. I don't know if you remember, guys. That was like over a year ago I did that. And I just need to go back and sort of reapproach it and see if I still like it. Um, but yeah, pretty much, I mean, for the most part, I redid the heavy, like I touched that up, added the fur, and that looks awesome. I love that outfit. I think it's one of my favorites. And yeah, the medium's cool. I actually wear the light now all the time, but you can find the medium in the world and put it on, and upgrade it. So yeah, I mean, I just need to touch up and make the Raven outfit look cooler. And the Wolf outfit, I have a couple designs. I just need to execute on those and get that done. And the Elite's already done. Elite's been done for a while. Yeah, I think it's just like one or two things that are left. And the Overlord outfit, we have another design, that I've sort of decided I may just have that become the Overlord outfit. But I don't know. I think I could probably make one more that's more in line with what I think I know what I could do now. Yeah, I think maybe I'll make one more. So yeah, close, ish, close. Completely done, nah. But they're all there. I mean, you can swap them, a lot of them, and put them on and off. But it's coming along well. Hmm. I think I'm actually. So the way ice works, right? You actually can't climb it. You can walk on it, but you'll slide off of it. So why I'm kind of doing that here is, I mean, I just sort of threw this thing in here to think it looks kind of cool. Because really, it's just more for to draw the player. Like, hey, if they see this, but if I put this here, chances are they're gonna be like, I want to climb on it, and they can. I mean, technically, they could just like, that's why I was like, put ice here. It's kind of useless because they're just gonna go and climb up anyways. Um, but it's nice to have them sort of come out of it. It feels a little bit better. Um, and so I have some rock object here. And I never actually matched those textures yet, which is really easy for me to do. Um, but at runtime, it's actually pretty damn close with the effects that we put on the scene to adjust that. That it's not the end of the world if they're not a perfect match. Most games in the olden days, you'd have to really, really, really match those as best you could. Um, but you don't necessarily have to as much anymore. You can get away with it at runtime. So yeah, if I came here and stuff this dude in. And the cool thing is with our rock objects. Oh, see what I screwed up? I don't have LOD. If I actually selected an LOD, that's what. Oops. Oh, son of a bitch. All right. Nudge the whole terrain for a second there, which is terrifying. May come back to that. What's up? Is there any way to do the game prior to release for those who didn't get the alpha tier? Play the game prior. Well, I mean, there's closed alpha, or sorry, closed beta. So, and I mean, honestly, um, I would think that, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say when anything is because then someone will rage email me saying that I said a certain date. But I said most people are probably gonna have to wait too long to play, to get into closed beta. I would think that's sooner than later. Let's just leave it at that. And the other question is an orchestra music update. So uh, we did a lot of our live choir stuff. As it stands right now, we still have to do some boss music. So we've looked at doing full orchestra stuff, and we still may actually wind up doing um, a full orchestra, but based on how much sequencing and samples that we have, we may wind up doing more. Because when we did the choir, right, we actually had to spend a bunch of time um, kind of reworking the songs a little bit to get all of that to sit well based off of this recording, like a live recording. Some of the things we discovered during that. Um, and looking at how some of the songs track and sequence and line up, and because they overlap a little bit, that actually can kind of be pretty tricky. So we're not saying no, but we're probably looking at maybe it's easier to probably do like smaller ensembles where it's almost like solo instrumentation, because then those can be easily put in. But once everything's done, that's probably when we'll even consider looking at doing another recording session, just because it's a lot easier and more iterative for us to be able to write the music with what we have, and then get that all into scene, make sure it works, make sure it's exactly how we want it, and then record it. Because the trick is, like I said, we're very iterative. And just even today, we made some changes to some certain things in cutscenes where we're kind of like, I'm gonna have to talk with Ian, be like, how you wrote this? Can you watch the scene now and adjust it a little bit? And if that was done live and we recorded it, that's a little trickier to make those adjustments. So it's one of those things where, like I said, if it's a couple instruments, it's a hell of a lot easier to make those adjustments than it is if it's like, well, we did that shot. Remember, we recorded that a month ago, and well, that's what you get. It doesn't sync up with the scenes anymore. So at least at the very least right now, we're probably sticking with a lot of the stuff we have, and it sounds awesome, no doubt. Spent a good chunk of change on amazing, basically recorded samples of instruments of orchestras, and we use that a lot. But like I said, when we did the choir recording, it was actually, I'm so glad we did it, because it was sort of like a practice run in a lot of ways, because it allowed us to make and learn quite a bit before we go down a path of doing a massive undertaking like that. So, but we still plan to do even more of that choir recording, vocal recording stuff. It really, I think, helps stand out and help the player feel a lot more in the music. And it always seems to be, for such a game that's, at least for me anyway, it's a game that's very word I'm looking for, like a solo experience, and it's a very I don't mean empty, like hollow world, I guess is the best way to describe it, where it feels very sad and like, there's not a lot of living people around that oh thanks, that having like sort of the vocal and choir and stuff helps sort of bring it back to sort of looking for. I don't know, it just makes it feel a little more social in a weird way. But you can see that thing popping in and out right now. That's our LOD, and I've accidentally moved the LOD instead of the actual asset, so I need to select it and fix it because I screwed it up. Let's see, turn off LOD, and I really screwed it. There we go. And then set it to stamp. Oh no. There you go. We'll just turn this guy off for now. I'm just I don't think I'm gonna wind up keeping this though. I never really liked. I may actually just put him up here. And he's even more. Because then you'll see him. Yeah, that's way more. If you're down here, you oh cool. Get rid of that. Makes this run up a little better. Oh snap. Sweet. And players are gonna want to climb on him anyways, and they can go over here and run all over him. Probably. I think he's set. He has a physics. Right. He doesn't. To add that. Add mesh. Sorry, I'm nerding out right now. I'm looking at a bunch of the. Okay, that's not too terrible. That should work. I've never used these as actual colliders, so I actually have to look into it a little bit. um, so someone is asking. Oh, Linod is asking. I'm gonna ask this question. It's been on everyone's mind. I'm sure it's been on everyone's. If you were dropped on this island full of snow and ice and monsters, what would be your chances for survival? I would die. First off, uh, I probably wouldn't get much past the first area. Probably die very, very quickly. Yeah, I don't think I'd live very long. I'm, I can manage cold pretty well, but not sure I could climb on a giant beast and kill it. I don't think that would bode well for me. Sorry, I don't think I'd last very long. And the sad thing is, I would know. The worst part is I would know the entire layout, and I still would die. I would know where everything is, and I would still not make it very long at all. As much as I would think I could, I don't think I would. Um, it's crazy how quiet it is because I don't have music like thumping. So it's just this hollow quietness of me talking. Let me see. Yeah, that's what I'm. Piece. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? No, I'm totally not gonna use these assets. I think I know. Maybe. Now I think about it, I'll leave these in for now. But I have another asset I may use that I think maybe this. I'm just doing right now. Like this is something that's. I don't know if this is even a truism, if that's even such a word, or like factually correct or whatever. But I kind of go with the notion that when people see kind of man-made things or things that are familiar, on top of being like, oh, amazing and cool looking, they'll walk towards them. They're things, objects of interest, right? Another big thing I think that people tend to do is they walk through arches, whether they want to or not. They just kind of are drawn to them. So what I usually like to do is, like here, I'll probably add some kind of arch of some kind, and then that will lead the player through to where they're going. And it's just a path that I'm building right now. This isn't anything crazy. And I mean, it's on stream, which means in a lot of ways I do things a little more haphazardly, just because spending forever on teeny little details in a stream means I actually don't get as much done, because usually it's broken up with questions and answers. So I try to just do a lot of big blocked in type stuff. I said, here's like a question, right? So I gotta listen. Fennec323 says, curious as someone who has worked almost exclusively on Unreal, have you used UE4 before, and what do you like better about Unity? I've been curious about messing with it myself recently. So I used Unreal 4 briefly at my previous job. I worked on a game called Farpoint. It was a VR game for Sony, done by the development studios Impulse Gear. Awesome guys, really like good friends of mine. If you have PS4 VR, totally pick up that game, please. I worked on a number of the creatures and kind of initially, and then another character artist came in and finished and kind of polished up a lot of that stuff because I left to work on this project. So I'm very appreciative of them being cool about that, and you know, still being friends with me after leaving. You know, usually leaving mid-project on a new project for a new studio is pretty brutal. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that they were so understanding and cool about the fact that I was like, hey, you know, this when we put out this trailer, like we were never expecting to do what we have done, right? This is pretty amazing to be able to, you know, quit our full-time jobs and be able to work on this full-time because of, you know, the support of you guys and sort of believing in our ability to do this. So, you know, I mean, it's cheesy that I always say like, thank you so much for the support, but it's true. Like, this game would not exist. It would probably never come out otherwise. So at least if we're making it, I mean, like I said, we talked to publishers and stuff, and it just never was really our plan to want to work in that sort of method if we could have helped it. And so yeah, I mean, that was one of my instances of working in Unreal. So I just did very little bit of work in there. Mostly what I did is I just exported stuff out of Modo, which was the modeling platform I used, and just import it and just slap some shaders on. I was very, like, I just barely touched Unreal that much. Most of the time I would throw it into a scene and then throw on the VR headset and check it out. So to think I'm probably not the person to talk to about what I think is better. I've just used Unity for so long, and Tim and Chen are both very good at development with Unity. That's why we wind up using it more so. You know, for a lot of ways we like the ease of its use. But you know, every tool is different, and I'm sure there's things that Unreal does that are, you know, better, so to speak, or easier for developers, while there's things probably in Unity that are vastly better as well than what Unreal has. So I would say, you know, if you're looking to try out Unreal, do it. It's like, it's free. You just, you know, spend a weekend and try it out. But, you know, under that caveat, like, remember that you're learning a new tool. So there's going to be things that you're, you know, going to be like, why don't they do it like Unreal? And just like I would be when I was working on Unreal, I'm like, why don't you do this like Unity? And it's like, well, because they're Unreal, they don't have to. And then vice versa. You know, Unity doesn't have to do it like Unreal. They can do it like they think is the right way to do it. So because of that, you get, I think, this sort of contrast and comparison that happens between the engines. When really it's just like, what kind of game do you want to make, and how do you want to make it? And if you want to use the two big engines, go for it. If you want to build your own engine, I probably wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you have the time and effort and you know, the patience, go for it. But yeah, in terms of what I think is better, I personally have just been using Unity for so long that I'm very comfortable with it. And I like the fact that because Unity's been in development in this kind of style for so long, that they have a really strong community. I mean, Unreal always had development. Unreal 3 engine, Unreal 4 came out. It was, you know, pretty fresh for what they were doing with all their blueprints. But I just felt like they still need to build up the community, but I think they are. I think they're doing a lot, and especially even with Fortnite, I'm sure they probably get a ton of kids now. They're like, I want to try out making my Fortnite game. I'll use Unreal. So I'm sure like that's going to help that engine grow in terms of just getting more people to use it. Because I mean, I would say that like there's a lot of fresh users, like new users on Unity that don't quite understand a lot of just like fundamental game type stuff. But at the same time, you know, because there's so many people, there's gonna be a question and answer about something that you run into. And for me, when I would do Unity development myself, before, you know, this was actually when Tim and I were sort of kind of just dabbling in it. And Chen was obviously still doing work with me on another project. But I know Tim and I, as both as artists, were like, let's go do development. And he kind of went one way and I went one way. I think I did Playmaker and he did Uscript. Those are two different types of scripting languages. And Uscript was much more straight up C sharp type stuff. And Playmaker was more kind of visual language type stuff. And I thought Playmaker would be good. I mean, in the end, like you can look, Tim's the engineer now, and I wish I had the awesome engineering chops like he did. But anyways, I totally went off on a tangent, and someone asked a question. I'm so sorry. Oh yeah, I should probably introduce myself. Oh, there's new people in here. Cool. Hey, so if you're new, there's been a good poll of about 80 people this whole time, which is awesome. Those people that have been staying since the beginning, thank you so much. That means a lot. We've been streaming since 2. So I probably have about another 30 minutes left. And we'll run through this really quick. It's pathetic, I mean, in terms of what I usually can get done, but I've been answering a lot of questions, filling you guys in on a lot of stuff that I've been up to. So I usually don't work this slow, I promise. And a lot of it, too, is I explain what I'm doing. But anyways, I will explain who I am. My name's Brian Parnell. I am one of the 3 developers and founders of the studio No Matter Studios, which is making the game Pray for the Gods. So if you've seen our trailers before coming in here, cool. If you haven't, please go check them out. And if you want to help support us and get a free copy of the game while you do it, when the game ships, that is, please do so at prayforthegods.com/support_now. I hope to God that's the link. I haven't checked it in a while. But basically what it is it's just, we use the Humble widget. So you can, there's a bunch of different tiers we have. Any one of those things obviously helps support development, always helps support development. And yeah, we're just, right now we're in closed alpha. So a number of backers originally during the Kickstarter had a very, we didn't want a lot of people in closed alpha because we wanted to be able to manage the feedback and be able to sort of manage our sanity with feedback. So there's about a couple hundred people that are in closed alpha at the moment. I think it's a couple hundred. And once we go closed beta, it goes into the thousands. So for us, like that could be something for 3 people. Like we're trying our best to make sure we can manage that and prepare for that. In which case, then I'm sure we'll get a lot of performance-related stuff like my computer XYZ doesn't work with this, or my frame rate isn't bad on that. I mean, that's what we're kind of expecting to get, as well as just like I found a bug, or I don't like this part of the game, or this is something that's frustrating to me, or I'm lost. So we're preparing for a lot of that and trying to get as much of the game, especially the core loop type stuff in. But yeah, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, who I am. God, I'm clearly getting like spaced out. It's getting to be near the end of the day. So yeah, anyways, we're working on the game, and we have been since we did our Kickstarter in the summer of 2016. And right now, like I said, we're in closed alpha, and we'll be doing some stuff for E3, which is in 2 weeks. And then after that, then we'll move along and hopefully get this game out. The plan is for kind of what we're calling like an initial PC launch in 2018, and then we'll follow up into consoles, and and if the game does well, obviously we love this game. We love working with making giant monsters and climbing them and doing all that stuff. So if people really like what we have, and it makes sense to keep working on it, we will. I would prefer to do that. I don't want to go take another job. So especially I'd be heartbroken, honestly. But yeah, so anyways, that was my super long introduction. I apologize. Hopefully it made sense. But yeah, at this point I just need to add more. This is pretty sad looking. It's just like 6 little blocks of ruins. Let me grab the I hope this one works. I can grab the big door. That was sort of the plan. Well, we were either going to put like a cave entrance here. Well, I'll just maybe just make it a cave entrance. I'll do that for now. Cave. Um, the question is, let's say that Pray for the Gods is a success. You get big money. The company succeeds. What do you do first? Please say sleep. uh, uh, if it went really, I mean, if the game was really successful and people liked it, um, I mean, I don't want to start diving in too much on what that would be. I mean, because I don't know what that would mean, right? Um, Success can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But if if the game sold really well, or at least well enough for us to keep making stuff, I'm sure we would. That would be my ideal thing. In terms of like, what do we do next after this game? I think that depends. It depends a lot on like, you know, have we kind of said everything we want to say with this game? And does it feel like a full experience? Because sometimes just adding things into games just for the sake of adding it can kind of detract, and it's sort of like, what's the point? It'd be, it's about your effort, time and effort. What do you get? Like, what is the player going to get from that? So there is sort of a point of diminishing returns in the sense of like, we could add all kinds of little tiny features, but after a while, it's like it's not really changing the game or making the game that much better. Obviously, if we add just more giant bosses, that certainly helps. But at a point, it kind of gets to be a bit much, where it's like, okay, like I want to beat the game now, but there's all this other crap I have to do, and that's more personal, I guess, for me. Like at a point, like I sort of hit a point where I'm like, all right, it's like a movie. You're kind of like, all right, the movie needs to end now, and then I'd go see maybe a sequel of that movie, or I'd go see another movie by that same director or whatever else. But like at some point, there's movies where you're just like, oh my god, end this movie. And I feel like with games, it can be that way too, where you're kind of like, oh, I just beat this thing. It was super hard, and I feel so good about that, and I'm done. And then they're like, ha, here's one more thing, and you're like, oh my god, I don't want to do it again. So I'd hate for the game to get to be that way. So in that regard, I don't expect us to be, um, you know, adding things for the sake of adding it. Hey, Alpha Wolf 23, thank you for following us. I apologize if I didn't get anybody else that followed. The pings are kind of, they pop in and out sometimes, but I just want to say thanks for following and welcome to the stream. So I think for us, it's something we've all talked about, that yeah, we would love to keep making a game like this, or games like this, or if it makes sense to add stuff in. I think it does to a certain extent, to try to get a little bit more in if we can. But it really just depends, and it's probably too early for me to like say one way or the other. Do I have other game ideas? Of course. I mean, everybody has other game ideas, but a big part of that is like, if I I'm not worried, like if I say what it is, and so I'm not saying that. I mean, it's more along the lines like, I don't really know if some of those times those ideas are just like half baked. We have a couple ideas that I think would be really cool, and it would probably be a utilization of our tech, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing for us, is like, well, we've made this great tech, so even if people kind of like it, but it's like, it's probably the amount of effort that we put into it. But that's the fun thing, is like, we wouldn't be starting from scratch. We would be able to say like, oh, we have like, the character control stuff, that all works, the tech all works. We either polish the tech a little bit better, or add a new feature, and you could theoretically make a sequel, or sort of like a new IP based off the tech pretty quickly. So that's, I think, for us, the one of the biggest parts of success for us, is being able to have that opportunity to do that again, without having to have the upfront time of having to build out all the tech. And that's why I think you see a lot of game studios, their first game may be okay, but it's usually their second game or their third game that's amazing, because they've built up enough of that tech, and they've built up enough of that stuff, that now they're just polishing on that tech, and they're polishing on a lot of the heavy duty systems, and they can actually create a whole new system that they don't have to worry about all the other stuff that we take for granted has already been built, right? So, and that's even why I think you see even so many games getting released now. It's because you have engines like Unity and Unreal being able to have, I'm actually gonna do some world building now, have released these fully featured engines that otherwise used to have which are either impossible for small studios to even touch, or in a lot of ways they were you would take a giant team like MMOs, right? I mean, not a big part of MMOs wasn't even necessarily the game engine side. It was actually more the server side. Is why you'd usually have massive teams. But all in all, like yeah, I mean, I think if the game's successful, we would definitely plan to keep making more games, be it this specific game or games like it. Oh, see, look at that. It totally works. Oh, it's gonna be rad when that's done. So I'll make a little cave there. Oh, it's bitching. I may need to make this a little more interesting. It's like one thing we notice is like if it's really a straight shot for the player, it actually kind of feels boring. Because you know where you need to go, and it's just like, oh god, I'm just running there. So by usually breaking it up a little bit. So at this point, what I may wind up doing is having this sort of do some crossbacks and maybe zigzag a little bit, or have some objects that are make you have to turn a little bit. So, oh, what are RNG loot drops? All in this game. RNG? What does that mean? These acronyms, I have no idea. Oh, random number generator. Are there random loot drops at all in this game? No, not. I mean, random number generator. I don't quite grasp what you mean by that. Like, are the stats we're putting on things random numbers? No, but if you kill something, will it have a chance to drop something from a pool of objects? Yes. Like if you break a crate, it's not always going to drop the same object. But I don't expect us to have it where if you like don't know if you saw some of the objects you picked up, right? You picked up rope, you picked up like wood. Not like wood has like, oh, this is a +1 stat wood. Oh, I have a +3 stat wood. Like it's not like that. Like we don't apply random numbers to the at least consumable assets. I don't believe we do that. It's pretty straightforward. And if we want a piece of meat to be a better piece of meat, we make it obviously visually bigger and obvious to the player. I mean, part of the game was to try to avoid heavy stats as much as we could. Big part of that was just that it wasn't really something that we felt was. I mean, because usually if you expose a lot of those stats and the player wants to see them throughout the game, they would even want to see them on like bosses, like, oh, this boss does X amount of damage or something. So it's not how we wanted to make the game. So so yeah, we kind of avoid that as much as we can. That's gonna look sweet. I'm just looking right now. I'm trying basically doing all the angles. So I'm like, okay, is this gonna look cool over here? And I just need to top this off. I may just throw a rock object on there on top, but let's just use this is called the bridge tool. So this, what you'll see right now is I'm gonna push from this side. It basically gets the height and then applies it across. So there you go. So basically this will just sort of push this out. This. So one of the things too, it'll have to be probably the, oops. This is that. So you remember that I told you how that brush gets broken sometimes? It's doing its weird thing where like I have to, the joys of development, I have to kind of offset this a little bit. There you go. And I'm just going to smooth it. I mean, really, this is not going to be shippable state stuff. This is just more like for me laying it out. And okay, like right there, I got to fix that. I'm just sort of smoothing this out, and then I'm just going to cap it with a ton of snow on the top. There. Little. It looks a little fugly right now, but that's kind of intentional. Like it'll just, there you go. I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. Grab the old bridge brush. I may just wind up actually stuffing a bunch of rocks in here. That tends to always look better, but we can sometimes make it work. Blend pretty well. Actually. Cool. What's up? Shh. It is. Oh, thanks. Oh my gosh. There you go. It's done saving. Okay. So I'm going to do now. Go objects we now. I'm just going to fake this right now so you guys can at least get an idea of what it would be, because I can't really. Oh, sweet. Vin Diesel or Diesel 2018. That's awesome. Oh. Bendix 323. How does gameplay centric level design fit into your process here? Like, how do you decide the layout of levels, where enemy sources will be, and does that affect the way you apply? Yes. So, like, right now I'm doing stuff that probably seems like I'm just making it up as I go along. And I'll be honest, there's a little, like, I just sort of kind of bullshitted this thing back here. But we knew based off of our playthroughs that we wanted to put something of importance over here. I won't say what that is, but we were like, we should put something there. Based off of how we know where everything else is laid out. And a lot of that actually goes with something that we discovered over time through our playthroughs. Not only our playthroughs, but playthroughs of from our backers as well as some of our development friends. We actually wanted to make things happen a lot sooner for the player and a lot closer. Sooner in the sense that I think when you think about Shadow had a mount, so things are happening a lot faster in a mount. I mean, you're basically racing towards something, and you know exactly, well, not exactly, but you know pretty damn sure where it is. Our game's a lot different in that regard, right? You don't do that. You have you find pieces of maps. You are a lot more exploration. So actually, a lot of exploration can happen in a much smaller area versus telling a player go walk all the way over halfway across a map to where you need to go. I mean, if you had to walk in Shadow to like even the second boss, even hell, even the first boss, I think most people would turn off the game. I mean, that's actually a long way to go. But you're in a horse, you're hauling ass. So with our game, since we come at things a little bit different, we have a couple different. We have granted we have a grapple hook and we have sailcloth and some of those things which do speed up traversal. Um, we are still finding that we can actually bring things a lot closer to the player while still feeling like they're going over larger distances. And that combined with combat and stuff actually does slow your progress. While you still feel like you're getting a lot done, you if we put like I said, if we put the distances at the same level without that ability to sort of either fast travel or like I say, get on a mount or something, that's where it changes. And because we have so much climbing where we want the player to climb around, having a mount actually is kind of not as awesome. So in this regard, we've been saying, hey, let's try to put things or put things a little bit closer for the player. And that's what we're doing right now is sort of pulling some things in and really making that this is I'll still kind of I would even say in sort of the starting area, so to speak, where a lot of this is. So yeah, I mean, in terms of when we map things out, we certainly map them out with the implications of a game design, a gameplay, like why am I going there? Like what's the purpose of going there? But that changes over time because it's very we work very iteratively, and by that I mean like we put our best ideas forward, but sometimes those ideas are half baked, even though we think they're fully baked, or we put them out there with the best intentions, but then we change something in the game that we feel like, well, actually, that this is happening, we really should be doing this instead. Big part of that, I would say, is level of difficulty. We thought the game was a lot easier for people, and actually it was a lot harder. So we've been making adjustments for that, not to make it easy, but to at least make it palpable for a lot of kind of player bases. So that's something we've been looking at as well. But in the meantime, yeah, it kind of looks like I'm just sort of winging it. And to some extent that's true because I've done this enough that I can just sort of manage with what I know will wind up looking good based off of previous level designs. And that's what a lot of level design is. It's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Trial by fire. I mean, you should just kind of do your best idea of what you think it would be and try to make it look as cool as you could and fun as you could, and then iterate on that. And since we don't do a lot of if we do blockouts, usually our blockouts are in our cave sessions. Since we're using terrain, we tend to just use the terrain tools and it can go just as fast. I try not to do a beautification on my first pass. That's why I'm kind of just being pretty quick with my painting of snow and stuff. I just kind of slap it on there. And in this case, it's like what we're looking right now is just to sort of get the player up and over here and interested in this. And then if they want, they can look out over here and kind of be like, oh, I can go over here. Shit, I can go all the way up over there and do a bunch of stuff. Like I said before, if you see these stretchy, this is because I haven't loaded this into the environment. So that's why it looks that way. That's not what the game is. I have to say those things because someone will probably email me and yell at me because it looks that way. It happens, trust me. It's part of game development. But yeah, so I don't know if I really like this guy here, but we'll start with him there. I mean, it's going to put some scaffolding in because we wanted to sort of make crossbacks. But for now, I mean, this is just a pretty straightforward, narrow path that took me a lot longer than I usually would. But because it's like part of a conversation when we're doing this on a stream versus just straight up head down working. I need to smooth this out though real quick. But what I can do is I will then export this out and we can walk over it and take a look at it really quick. And at the very least, we'll be close. Like I said, I want to put in the actual cave entrance, but the way our cave entrances work, it just have to be an art asset for now. If I had to go in and start repointing everything, I have to actually use data to do that. And that's a lot of stuff for me to do. To check on and do back and forth, and not really something I want to do on a stream. I'd rather just kind of do stuff that's a little more like something you guys would see. Otherwise, you see me typing and doing stuff in the background, and I'd probably have to I don't have a cave done yet, so it'd have to be like, or at least the cave that I know I want to go to. That cave is yet to be finished, and I don't want to show that yet. So we'll just pretend that there's a cave that I'm going to. Let me find a cave entrance that I can pull from. Let's see. Oh, it's this one. Yeah, this guy right here. This is the one. Nope. Is that it? It should be it. Oh, whoops, no, I'm looking at something else. There he is. I want that one. I'll take this guy. So I'm just going to duplicate him real quick. You call him something else. We do call. We're going to move him. See how it's saying like needs verify. Basically, you verify shit so you know it works, but I'm not going to verify it because I'm just going to turn all that off, and then we're just going to export it, and it's going to look pretty for now. And then I'll actually have probably Tim play through this a little bit, and because Tim and I had talked about at length about why we want to do this. Be good. So our cave entrances tend to be just sort of big, spooky, hollow entrances like this. Go into them. We also have doors, big doors that we use in other areas, but for this case, I think I'm going to stick with the cave entrance like this. Oops. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off all of the lighter stuff. Should be okay. Yeah. Box. There. And then I'm just going to go ahead and select. And then, whoops, shit. That's what I wanted. Yeah, see, I need to fix that little pocket. And I'll just, it's fine. I don't like that rock. Get it. I don't like it. Boom. You look cool. Nice. Sweet. All right, cool. That's close. That's close. I mean, I'll fix it up a little bit more, but put some bushies in there. Let's get some. I feel like freaking what's his face, the dude with the fro. Bob Ross. I did not say happy birthday to Lynn Odds. I feel bad. That was a while ago, so it's more like belated at this point. So happy birthday to Lynn Odds. He's our super mod, senior mod on the Discord channel. If you guys also, by the way, I know I've been kind of heads down. I've been very chatty this stream. I'm joking. But if you guys have further questions that you either didn't think of now, but you want to ask later, or you just want to chat with me about whatever, I'm almost always on Discord. Our Discord, which is discord.gg/pray for the gods. And you can go there, sign up, jump in, chat with us. Usually I'll actually do some deep dives in our discussion threads. Like I said, there's some things I can talk about and there's some things I can't currently. But there's a good little community that's been there for a long time when I actually used to stream more regularly. And yeah, we just love for you guys to come in and hop in and say hi. And usually that's where we announce streams or we make other announcements, like newsletter stuff gets updated there probably first and foremost. I'm almost daily in contact with our moderators, which are all awesome and super thankful for their support and help. They've been, I mean, volunteers and they're freaking amazing. So, like I said, happy birthday to Linods, but also a special shout out to all of our mods. Um, uh, and if you guys, like I said, are new to this stream or new to even what we do or who I am, uh, which is my name is Brian Parnell, you can certainly come to Discord, and that's where we talk a lot. Especially if you are already a Kickstarter backer, we don't do a lot of announcements through Kickstarter. As whenever I tend to do announcements on Kickstarter outside of newsletter stuff, I get berated by some news Kickstarter backer. They don't want us usually making announcements on Twitter, or I'm sorry, on Twitch. Um, so yeah, Discord's where we do most of our chitty chat, like day-to-day stuff. And then newsletters are usually where we do like a bigger drop on discussion points. And then if you're like a Kickstarter backer, usually most of the Kickstarter stuff is related to sort of like either the physical rewards or I'll link usually the newsletter to that. And then we started as something that we're looking to do more of, which is what we call Q&A for the gods. Ha ha ha. And that's we'll, if you have questions, basically you send a bunch of questions, your questions to Linods if I'm not available, and he kind of throws those to me and then I answer them and we try to put those into the newsletter. So we're looking at seeing if that's something we can do more often. It just tends to be like a mini interview, so it does take some of my time. Sometimes I can get Tim and Chen to do Q&A as well, but even their time is pretty valuable as well, so we try to limit their ability to talk. No, we just make it so that they stay focused is the main thing. So yeah, I'm probably going to wrap up here in another 20 minutes or so. It's almost 5 o'clock, so like I said, and when I was asked earlier, my life schedule, that's usually when the littles start to show up, and I know my work is pretty much done at that point until they go to bed. So in the meantime, we'll try to get this thing exported out and just look at it really quick. I didn't get to do some of the things I wanted to do, so I'll do this tonight, and then maybe I'll just update that on Twitter or something. Like I'll post a screenshot of whatever it looks like, because it's like I said, it's pretty safe in terms of Spoilerville. Like I'm not spoiling the world here. We're gonna go ahead really quick though and slap down some bushes, Bob Ross style. So I'm gonna go ahead and this is also in Terrain Painter, so we're just gonna use this really quick. Yeah, little bushes just got slow thrown on there. So let me scale that down. The scale of these is usually tricky. I usually have to spend a little bit of time to remember the scale. We'll just sort of sprinkle these along. I'm going to put some on here. And then, I don't know if you saw when I was running around in the world, there's it's really tiny. There's berries that we have the player get, and they come out of bushes like this. So I usually hand place those. Like I said, I'm probably like this whole thing is probably going to wind up being a big staircase with stairs and not just a path. But for me to spend the time to put in the stairs is actually going to take more time, and it's easier, at least in terms of testing, to be like, okay, this, get it to a point where it feels desirable and something I want to run up to, and then that's not even including any kind of combat. This is just sort of a run up. And one of the things we want to do right now is make those look pretty epic, but even get it to be epic, you have to start sort of the basics. And what I don't want to do is dive in on something that I'm not totally sure of how I want it to look. Holy shit. Oh God. Oh, so this must be where a sector is linked, like a terrain chunk is all linked up. So if I click here, it's trying to put all. So what I'm saying is I want to do 3. Like, see how it does it in chunks of 3? So what's happening here is you can see the little seam. We stitch our seams on play, but like you can see them in the editor. So this little seam right here is between two trains. So when I click down, it's trying to say, oh, I want to put 3 trees on a train. So that's why I did like 9, because all it's a sort of a major crossroads of trains. So even if I put there, yeah, that's kind of how I'm gonna have to do it for now. So I'm actually just gonna shrink down the brush size and shrink down the density of what I'm painting. So it's just 1:1 there, and I'll just do it. There you go. And that's kind of right there. I'll fix it. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm gonna definitely have to put more into this. It looks pretty sad. But let's go ahead and just export it and see how the run up feels. I have a feeling it's going to be too long of a path without anything breaking it up. But we'll see. Feeling confident that it's going to feel that way. Someone's asking how we create our model, our train. So it's been pretty extensive. We initially started with just large kind of World Machine, which is a different program that builds just kind of mountainous things. And we just started with that, and we were like, oh, okay, let's throw some stuff on and see how it feels. And it felt okay, but it also felt kind of procedural and not very specific. So what we actually do is we wind up hand painting a lot of the terrain. Um, and then we use stamp tools and other things to sort of cheat the process of terrain to actually make it look believable. And then even at that point, we go back like what I was doing right now, and I start at cutting in paths and routes. And once we do that, then we start applying objects, and then we usually wind up even going back again. So it's very iterative. We usually do it in passes so that we're not just like heads down for the next 3 or 4 days just slamming in stuff. We usually tend to do it in kind of bite-sized chunks so that we can sort of see the process and make sure that it's getting better before we dive in and go fully like, oh, this is totally all done. We'll go from there. There we go. So I'm just going to export a couple of these scenes. I don't need to export all of them. Oh. Yep. So you can tell like there's little purple lines that show up. I think we use a program called Sector for this. So I'm going to go and export it. And this is going to take a while. So we're just going to sit here. So anybody has questions while this is exporting. And then upon export, we'll run back through. Like I said, I added that statue thing. I'm hesitant. I'm going to have to do, I think, quite a bit of work around it to make it feel really cool. We've added them in other areas, and we've been pretty successful with it, so I'm not too worried about it. But from the work you've seen me do today, there's still further work to do. So I don't want people thinking like what I've done is finished work by any means. We still need to polish on it and make it look better. And especially this area that I just cut up and just threw in. But it shouldn't take me much longer, actually. I'll probably spend and go a lot faster where I'm not streaming. I'll be able to just sort of zero in exactly on what I need to do and tweak and tune it. Yeah, I mean, this is probably what we're going to have for this area. And like I said, there's another location that I'm going to work on as well and get those kind of spruced up. And then we'll go from there. Pineapple on pizza thoughts. I don't eat pineapple on pizza that often. I do. My wife really likes it, so that's usually her favorite type of pizza. So I usually eat that. But I kind of been swinging around now. I do like there's pizzas that have what do they have? Like a ranch type pizza where it's like chicken and bacon and and it's probably horrible for you. So I eat that from time to time. And yeah, I'm trying to think. We're almost done. I gotta like it's 2 big sectors I'm exporting, 3 or 4. So it's gonna take a little bit of time to get this done. Oh, okay. You told me how to fix that on sector. I'll take a look. Oh, tab itself. In Hey Shadow, is that in OBS? The actual OBS settings? Like if I go to settings OBS, go to oh, that was me clicking on. Oh, wait a minute. I think. Hold on a second. Oh no, it's still doing sectors right now. Okay. I use just so you know, I use old OBS. I don't use the new OBS yet. Yeah, I saw. Uh, I know what I did. It was something I did so when the intro stuff was getting all like jacked up. Oh, I'm back. Almost hit the wrong button. That was annoying. Apologize for that. um, but let's see. Alt. Uh, I think I know what the issue is, but I don't want to screw up the stream at this point. I wish there was a way, like you can do preview stream, but it doesn't mean shit. Like it really doesn't do anything. Like you fix it all up and then you hit play and everything breaks. Like that's literally what happens every single time. And remember last time, all I did was adjust the volume setting. I didn't touch anything else. And it was completely batshit crazy when I started again. It doesn't make any sense. Also, I was having all kinds of issues with Discord. I was having a chat with Tim on Discord, and I couldn't even hear him talk today. It's because Discord just decided to offset the default settings that I had put. It was like, nah, you don't need those default settings. I'm just gonna change this around. Probably like a driver setting or some stupid thing that Windows 10 updated. Like that kind of crap. That eats up like like 30 minutes of my day just dealing with that, and it's like that adds up over time. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating having to deal with that crap. Uh, I don't know where this main screen thing you're talking about is. Like I'm looking at settings and there's a chunk that says audio and then I have desktop audio device set to default because guess what? That should work. And it doesn't. So screw it. We're just gonna oh cool, it's done. So I'm gonna hit play now. So what it just did, you can see on the screen, it in yours is gonna pop over in a second, but it exported out everything. So this is the super, this is like what we call our proxies. So this is what you see from like super far away as it loads in levels. So because we stream in the levels over time. So when I hit play, I'm going to go ahead and save scene and save project really quick. And cool. I'm going to hit play. Hopefully this doesn't break anything because I did add that door, but I didn't tag it, so it should be okay. Yeah, I don't have those settings. That's Shadow. You sent me new OBS. I have old OBS. Oh, now that I think about it, I may not be able to actually look at this yet. We'll see. We'll see. Because I think what's going to happen is that while I exported those changes, they no, it should update because the level. This I'm sorry, I'm just thinking to myself the way we do our saving of when you play the game. So it should update. Oh, I didn't run in here last time. Be fun. There. Oh, it is cool. Yeah, so let's see how this works. Yeah, I'm gonna want to make some more changes, obviously. Yeah, this gets to be too long. It gets too narrow right here. But what we'll usually do too, and I'm not going to do it here because I'm streaming and it probably is going to crash, is what I'll wind up doing is I can open and runtime adjust the terrain as I go. But I tend not to do that initially. Like I prefer to, you can see like I still need to blend the seams and fix all that crap. So it's not a big deal. What's going on over there? Oh, I know what that is. Yeah, there's a deer. I'll kill that guy later. So yeah, so that's where you would run in there, obviously. But that I need to fix that, dude. Shh. Fail. So also you'll see like there's editor bugs that we're dealing with that are not a big deal, but there are things that you would only see in editor. So if you see them, don't worry about them. Dead. But that, I mean, I'll fix this up. This will look pretty cool when it's done. I think I'll build some crazy terrain structure around that. That'll look awesome. Go up there, actually. Haha. Area not finished. I'll get to actually turn this thing off then. So what we have, like, why it suddenly went all snowy, like instantaneously, is like this is for when we were doing our alpha stuff. We put these up so that way if players were running around, it was sort of like a tell for them, like, hey, don't, oh, I'm not gonna make it. Oh crap. Oof. Ouch. Um, so that they know, like actually I'll walk out of it. There. So now the storm will turn off. But that's once obviously I finish this area, we won't have that sign up anymore that says that, so that'll go away. You forget about all these things, like when you're developing, you're just kind of like, oh yeah, that's right, that's in there. Oh crap, I can get it. Uh, Jesus Christ, that must be way up there. I just wanted to see what this was like because I was like, oh, maybe I'll put a path back here. And once I finish this up, this could look pretty cool. That's, you can see like it sort of this ninja little path all the way in the back. Oh, Area not finished. I'm gonna get totally trashed by the snow. But maybe I'll put some cool secret up here or something. Got some low poly shit. I gotta fix that. Oh crap. It's like these mountains just like appear in front of your face. Oh, prompt. Ugh. Oh crap. Oh god. So it's cold right now. So she's shaking when she tries to shoot. And that makes it really hard. Got the shot off though. Screw it. There's the bug. That's an editor bug. There's nothing I can do about that. Gotta love it. I think 2018 Unity will fix that. That's what Chen was saying. But like coming down, this doesn't look so bad. And the nice thing is once you come over it, then you'll see this area. So then that'll work pretty well. All the prompts. Well, I'm gonna die. I totally forgot like how cold that area is. Like instant kill. Because we didn't want players going in areas that they're not supposed to go yet. So like all that stuff is like, oh hey, don't go there yet. Distance. Deer, man. That is a hardy deer. Oh, I'm out of freaking bow and arrow. Awesome. Anyways, still got a lot of work to do, but that makes sense. Just kind of show you how we do it. But yeah, it's pretty much time to go, actually. I got another couple minutes. So glad that all the bugs showed up just as I was showing it, too. That's always how it works, right? Woo. I'm just hitting buttons right now. Okay. I'm just going to close out. Oh wow. There's lots of prompts. Question. Yep. Snow going to affect how easy it is to climb? Like, no. Like, snow won't affect your ability to climb. That won't be a problem. God, this looks like shit. This is people are gonna be like, "Oh my god, this game looks fucking terrible." Oh, look, it's like this is a proxy. I haven't loaded the scene yet, so I have to explain that because the last time I did a stream where I showed development of a sandbox level, someone thought that was the actual game and they flipped out. So that's not the case. That is I can't expressly state this enough. What you're looking at is an unloaded level. So it's called a proxy. It's basically like, so you can visualize and be like, oh, what level do I need to work on? I'll work on that one. You click it and import it, and it'll import the actual level that you can change. But there's a couple other questions. So yeah, the snow going to affect how easy it is to climb? No, snow will not affect your ability to climb. You cannot climb ice. So there's like ice walls and stuff that we have in the game. We typically use them in caves quite a bit, and that will those will be unclimbable, obviously, because it's an ice wall. But rock and snow and stuff, you usually don't wind up climbing snow because snow usually is snow capped. We don't usually have snow on the sides, and if it's on a slope, it's usually a slope that you can walk up anyways. So yeah, it's not like we're gonna do where when it gets rainy, all of a sudden you can't climb anymore. Yeah, sweet. Hey, Kane or not, thank you for following us. Really appreciate it. Um, but I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, I don't really see any other questions. I see comments and stuff. Cool. Yeah. So and the other thing too is like you saw me run around and there was like no enemies or anything. I've turned all of those off. So like Tim's still working on a lot of that stuff. So I didn't. We don't want to show that yet. So you there was a lot of stuff that I'm turning off, and so I'm just running around in just like a terrain. That's why there's just like little like that look like maybe areas that there could be things there, and they certainly would be there. But the only thing I kept were just some of the ambient creatures just for fun. Um, and even then I couldn't kill him because I was not that good at shooting my own bow and arrow. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Feel free. Like I said, we'll be in Discord. I'll be in Discord. So if you don't know what that is, that's basically like a chat. It's actually pretty popular now with a lot of gamers. So if you go to discord.gg/pray for the gods, that's our Discord. We have a lot of mods that head it up. I pop in from time to time and I'll answer questions. I'll chat, and usually just to kind of. I find that that's a pretty easy place for me to be able to chat. Twitter, I feel like I always have to make some announcement for something. I don't feel like I can just chat openly as well on Twitter. Um, and with Kickstarter, like I said before, usually Kickstarter is primarily just for Kickstarter related updates. And then we'll do newsletters, which I'm writing right now, which talks, and I'll talk a little bit about what we did at E3, or not E3, at this sort of E3 Night of the Indies, which was this cool event that we got invited to go to recently, and then E3 itself, which we're planning to go to June. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for me. That was a pretty good stream. That was almost 3 hours. So I'll like I said, I think what I'll do is for fun, I'll take a screenshot of what we saw and what it was in the end. And I'm sure Tim probably has a ton of comments and he's going to be like, oh, we should do it like this. And I'll be like, okay, we'll do it like this. And we'll make some changes and go from there. And Chen will probably have some comments too. So I already felt like it was a little too long of a walk up. So I want to make some adjustments where it's a little more like either some platforming stuff to do. I mean, it's just a walk up, right? But we want to make those things feel really impressive and cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other questions or anything else? Feel free to post those in Discord or in this chat here. Anyways, guys, I'm heading out. Talk to you later. Bye. Where's the goodbye button? It's been that long. Oh, I found it. Okay, see you guys. Bye.